I'm here with proud West Islander Christopher Ragan, who is the founding director of the McGill University's Max Bell School for Public Policy. That must be a pretty interesting place to be right now with all this stuff about Donald Trump. How often is that coming up in the classroom? The tariffs, the trade war?
Well, I'm actually fortunately on sabbatical this year, so I'm actually not spending my every day at the school. But look, it's always the time for public policy, right? The last 2 months has been particularly interesting with Donald Trump and tariffs and trade, but there's always something going on. There was inflation for a few years, right? There was COVID, which was a fascinating thing. I mean, catastrophic, but also fascinating, socially, economically, health-wise. So there's always something kind of cool going on and to talk about in our classes or outside of the classes at Max Bell School.
Yes. And how do you think this is all going to end based on your vast experience in the financial sector, the public policy sector with Trump, the tariffs, and everything else?
Well, look, I have no crystal ball on this, but my prediction here is that our current tariff and trade war with the United States through Donald Trump is probably going to end the way the last one did. In 2018, Donald Trump, in his first administration, imposed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum. And after about 9 months, the pain was so bad in the United States. The pain was bad in Canada too, but the pain was so bad in the United States that people within his administration convinced him to repeal those policies. It took 9 months, 9 months of pain, but my guess is the same thing will happen here. I wish we didn't have to go through 9 months of pain to go through, to get those things repealed, but that's my prediction for what's going to happen.
I said up until now that I wouldn't ask about Donald Trump. And Joe's only mentioned Trump a couple of times, but kind of only in passing. So I really encourage you to realize that these arguments really are their solidity does not rely on the existence or absence of Donald Trump. But here we are. So let me start with this. Is Donald Trump a neoliberal? Because certainly his views about trade and tariffs, which we hear about 18 times a day in this country, suggest to me at least that he is not a neoliberal. So what is he? A thug. Okay, so is he a neoliberal thug or is he a different type of thug?
No, he's an opportunistic mafia style thug. I mean, I think look, a story might illustrate. I was at a dinner that I occasionally get strange dinners and what where
stray dinners,
strange dinners. And the person sitting next to me was a guy who was a Russian oligarch who also does business in the United States, and he gave me a piece of wisdom. He said, you have to understand about the thing you have to understand about Donald Trump is that he's just an ordinary Russian businessman. And if you can get that in your mind,
Trump would probably appreciate that.
I think I thought it was a compliment. So your businessmen tend to believe in ethics and you shake your my word is my honor and a contract is a contract and you hire a worker and you're supposed to pay him and you sign a contract you're supposed to. He said that's not the way the Russian economy works, and that's not the way Donald Trump works.
This may be the best explanation I've heard of Donald Trump. So in the preface to the book, opening few pages, I came across this passage that just stopped me in my tracks. And I don't think it would have stopped me in my tracks a year ago. But I was only reading this book a week ago. And here is the quote. States may feel forced into doing what they don't want to do, either by threat of military action or through threats of economic actions that would impact their economy so severely they believe they have no choice. Now, to any Canadian who has not been living under a rock in the last few weeks, I think that would resonate. So are you surprised that we are seeing, maybe the answer to the previous question says you're not, but are you surprised at all that you're seeing these kinds of threats from Trump, whether they're directed at Canada or Panama or Greenland or anybody else?
No, I mean, his modus vivendi has always been threats. And it was true when he was a businessman. I just had dinner last night with somebody who was threatened by him 40 years ago. And
he's still alive, so this is a good sign.
Some of this is bluffing and trying to figure out what you can get. It's, you know, the art of the deal. The deal is the context. The context is what you can get away with a threat. Now, you know, I haven't looked at the numbers, but Canada, you have one big advantage. I think it's overall maybe not a great thing, but your great advantage is one of your major exports are natural resources. I think it's, you probably know what fraction of your exports? Big. Okay. You're in the same area of detailed numbers that I am. But it's big. What does that mean? There's a global market, and you're selling those natural. There's you can sell that anywhere in the world. He has no market power over those natural resources. There's a little bit of market power in the oil or gas that goes through pipelines to the U.S.
Unless we have LNG. That's one reason why developing LNG is so important, because then it becomes a global market instead of that continental market.
That's right. But so right now, there's a little bit of a rent that comes from that. That's the point. And that rent gets shared. And that means that the U.S. will be hurt probably as much or more by the shutoff of that oil. So, you know, part of your response ought to be what Ottawa has done, and I think it's the right thing, and he backed off. Export taxes against the export of oil. You know, that was the one thing he did not put tariffs on, which shows that he realizes that's painful. Well, you can reciprocate and say, we now understand what you think. We'll put an export tax on the export of oil. And so one has to think very carefully about how to impose pain on the United States. Tariffs in general cost the country imposing the tariffs. So U.S. will suffer the most from the tariffs. You know, we all know that.
Which means we will suffer the most from our retaliatory tariffs.
That's right, and that's why the focus, you know, you have to think very cleverly to minimize that. Not drinking Kentucky bourbon, I think, is not going to cost you anything. I don't, you know, it's not that good. So
no, Canadians are addicted. Absolutely. Okay, last question. It's not necessarily connected to Trump, but just in today's world, how are you, or you know, why are you optimistic about our ability to get from the negative world we've been talking about, even pre-Trump, to the world of that more progressive capitalism? And then we're going to ask people to line up at the microphone.
Well, maybe because I still will, you know, we are in democracies, still in the United States, fragile. There, you know, as the whole theory is behind the veil of ignorance, most people, I think there's a broad consensus on most of the policies that I think of as progressive capitalism. You know, do people really like to have better health care, better education for their children, better social insurance? You know, I think these ideas resonate. And interestingly, even in the United States, when they do surveys of the particular policies, not of your identity as a Republican or Democrat, but of your view of particular policies, most of these, if you explain them right, they are supportive of what I call progressive capitalism.
Okay. And tonight you had Joesph Stiglitz here, Nobel Prize winner, had some pretty harsh words for Donald Trump.
Well, Joe Stiglitz is, first of all, a giant, a huge name in economics. He's been a huge name for a long time. He won a Nobel Prize in 2001 for his path-breaking work on uncertainty and risk and how that shows up in insurance markets, and et cetera, et cetera. And it was just a delight to talk with him. And he's not a fan, I would say, of Donald Trump, or at least Donald Trump's policies or policy approach. And you read the book and you'll understand why.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
All right. Great.